Hello and welcome to A Closer Look. My name is Dr. Russell Freeman. I'm an American doctor of chiropractic and a professor of health science at American University in Vietnam. A Closer Look will expand on topics and life skills through our academic community at American University in Vietnam. Our class today is entitled How to Pick a Company or Job That Will Work for You. Our guest is Professor Jim Houie. Professor Jim is an ex-executive, a regional director for Boeing Aircraft, and has extensive background in corporate ins and outs and corporate life. And we're very happy to have him on the show today to share his experience and his background with us. Jim, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Russell. I'm extremely happy to be here.
Me too. So, Jim, I couldn't really begin to explain your background. Can you give us a little synopsis of where you've been?
Thank you. Yeah. I've spent most of my career at Boeing, but before Boeing, I had several other jobs, including management consulting at two different firms. And since I retired from Boeing, I've been an adjunct at Seattle University teaching finance.
I see. Well, about today's topic, I was really curious when someone in school here asked me, what does it mean to have a good job? And I said, it's to have a job that works for you. And then I had to explain what that means. And in doing so, I don't think I did a very good job. I said you have to consider your skill set and what you're interested in and your passions and what you can learn and your goals and your values and all those things. But I don't think it was the right answer. So I'd like to have you help our audience understand what does it mean to have a job that works for you rather than you working for the job? And how would you elevate the job to a career, something that really works for you?
Well, I certainly think you're on the right track, and I hope I can add to the topic. I think you started out talking about knowing yourself, and I think that's very important. You have to understand what your strengths are and what your likes and dislikes are. And beyond that, I think you really need to discuss the direction that you're thinking of going in with people that have some experience. Not only people that have experience, but also your peers. Anybody that you encounter has something to add to your base of knowledge. So you should take every opportunity.
I see. Now, you mentioned about knowing yourself, and I think that that's a really great place to begin our understanding of this process. What does it mean to know yourself in the context of your professional career, and how do you do that when you're still in school or you're fresh out of school? You haven't made all the mistakes that you need to make yet. How do you really know yourself well enough to make a good decision?
That's a very tough one, because you're going to make mistakes along the way, and you're going to you might take detours and then have to come back. So I think starting out, you need to know what you're kind of have an understanding of what you're good at, and if you like what you're good at, then that's a very good start.
Well, like with your skills about knowing yourself, one of the things that I see in university is that students are sometimes afraid to make a mistake, or they tend to stick with topics or with activities that they feel that they can excel in, and they're kind of hesitant to take on new challenges because they don't want to look bad if they don't do well. What advice do you have for that kind of thinking?
I think that would be a mistake. I think being in college is an opportunity to expand your horizons, not just pigeonhole yourself into something that you feel you're good at. And but yes, of course, people need to be a little courageous. They need to step out a little bit in areas that they may not be so comfortable with. So as an example, I think that we all are very shy, or I shouldn't say all, many people are very shy, and I was very shy when I was in college. And so you don't, when you get up and in front of a group of people, you don't know what to do. And so if many people fear getting in front of people and talking. So that's something that you can push yourself a little bit. Look for opportunities to practice.
Okay. So once you have so-called knowledge about yourself, it seems to be that the next step is to find the right match for you rather than just finding it. I mean, you can find a job and all you're really interested in is the money. So you can find a job to make money. But if you really want to find a company that you can grow into, grow with, and grow through, is it helpful to create a profile for a company that's, I mean, you would do that maybe with a life partner, but do people do that when they're looking for a job? Can you create a profile of the right company or job or even right profession for you?
I think you have to make an attempt. And whatever you do may not be perfect, but I think you have to go along that path. You need to identify the characteristics of a company, things like what is the culture of the company? What are their products? What kind of operations do they have? Is it something that you have an interest in? So in my case, I came out of school at one point, and I was very interested in working for a management consulting company. I read about it, and I thought, wow, this looks very exciting. They're doing important work, and they're getting recognized for their work and being paid well, well compensated for their work. So that was very attractive to me. So I did pursue that. Later on, I worked for Boeing, and I enjoyed Boeing. It had a different culture. I liked the product. I liked, airplanes. I thought that was very interesting. And but the work culture was very different as well, and that's something you need to take into consideration.
Now, was Boeing the first job that you picked or the first place that you picked to work for?
No.
So did the criteria change for you from the first job you had until between the time you took your first job in the world to the time you went to work for Boeing? Did you change, and did your profile of the right company for you also change?
I believe it did.
And how do you build that into your plan?
Whoa, how do you build that into your plan? I don't know if you can. I think you have to get out in the workplace and experience a different culture, experience that particular culture, and see if it fits for you. So one thing about the management consulting area, they're very hard drivers. They'll just you've got a project and you've got a customer, you've got a deliverable, you've got a schedule, and they're just going to pound you to meet that schedule.
Stressful.
And it can be very stressful. And so I worked in that environment for a while, and I felt like I like more balance in my life. I like having a family life rather than just working late and working weekends. And that's the difference with larger corporations. There's opportunities for more balance.
Those may be things that you didn't really discover about yourself until actually you had been working for a while.
Yes.
So I guess what I'm catching here is that it should be an open process, an ongoing process of knowing yourself and making sure you're in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing. Because people change and the world changes and your life can change too. So
Absolutely.
A lot of people, when they get out of school and they're planning for their career, they're not thinking of, I need personal time for my family. They're thinking about how can I really succeed the best way. So that's really helpful to know. Another thing that you mentioned is about seeking advice. So can you describe how Have you ever had a mentor, or how did you pick the people that you got advice from, and how did you approach them?
That's a very good question. And I think mentors are very important, and they can show up in many different places. Where you may least expect. But for me, I had professors who were my mentors, and I would visit them often, and I would just stop in and chat, and we'd have a nice conversation, and they'd give me advice on what courses I should be taking or how I might change directions. And so that was very helpful. And in the workplace, as a younger person in the workplace, you'll often be working with more experienced people, and you should look at those experienced people and learn from their experience. And if you're an eager learner, then those people can become your mentor.
I see. And so for those that are still in school, university, or maybe a senior in high school and getting ready to graduate, it seems that the studies that you major in are going to have a lot to do with your thinking about career and also the skills that you feel that you have, and maybe even finding your passion. But what if you don't really have a direction? Perhaps, I don't know, what was your major in university? Were you an engineer or?
I was not. I thought I wanted to be an engineer, and sometimes I still think I want to be an engineer. I ended up majoring in a foreign language and traveling abroad, and I did make a career of that, but then I had a change of career afterward.
So when you studied foreign languages, was your purpose to have a skill that you could go anywhere with, or did you just enjoy it and you'd worry about the application later?
That's a very good question. I think that many people coming when they're graduating from high school, they don't have a good idea of what they want to do. I was a pretty good student. I was good in math and good in science. But when I entered college, it became a very big challenge, a bigger challenge than I thought it would be. And I started taking some foreign languages, and I found it very enjoyable. Something that I felt I was good at, and I just went ahead and pursued it.
Was your goal to be a teacher, maybe?
Yes.
I see. I had a very similar experience in my university because I started off wanting to be an architect, and then I thought about medical school, and then I discovered surfing. So my grades were terrible. I really didn't enjoy the classes that much, and I found myself gravitating towards communication-based classes. And I thought to myself, since I really don't have a direction, I don't know what I want to do, all I know is that whatever I do, I want to do really well. I ended up as a speech major because the only thing that I could think of that people had in common and a skill I could take everywhere was the ability to communicate. So if I had that, I could be a good learner, and I could talk myself into a position and learn when I needed to as I go. It turned out to be not the easiest decision to make or in terms of results, but it turned out to be the right decision. Because I've had to reinvent myself many, many times, and it's always gone back to my communication skills that has gotten me in, out, and then back into another situation. So it's nice to know that I'm not the only one in the world.
That's great to hear. I'm not the only one either.
So we all went through this experience when we were first shopping jobs, like there's so many companies and so many jobs, and I wasn't an engineer, I wasn't a medical doctor, I wasn't anything that would give me a natural direction for a job. So I would like to know for you, how did you research? How did you do your what we call due diligence, understanding the character of companies and the different professions and what they would mean to your lifestyle and to your values?
When you talk about due diligence, the first thing that comes to mind is the interview process. And so if you're a college graduate and you're you're looking for a position and you have some interview opportunities, you really need to do that due diligence on that company. Understand what their product is, understand who their competitors are, understand their position within their industry. So when you go in for the interview, you have an understanding, and you can have a conversation with the people from that, meaningful conversation with the people in that company. So,
would you say that you can interview the company just like the company can interview you?
Yes, absolutely.
Because that's been my experience. Yes. And it's also been the most effective interview tool that I've experienced, where after the company started asking me about me, I started asking them about them to make sure that they deserve me. And at least that was my attitude about it. Yes. It worked pretty well, I have to say. In retrospect, I got through by the skin of my teeth, but it worked very well. And one thing I'm really curious about, because I saw this with a lot of my contemporaries, is that people that were really dedicated to a certain job or professional track, a lot of them picked things that in 5 or 10 years, they really weren't viable anymore. They didn't really look into the future to see, is this going to be the buggy whip of the next generation? Is this going to be a viable job? You know, if you wanted to be a TV salesman and, you came on during streaming times, it's probably difficult. So how did you factor that in?
That's a very important point. And I think that anybody in the job market, they need to be nimble. They need to be a lifelong learner. They need to look at opportunities that are coming and consider them. And if they need additional education, they should pursue it. There are many universities that offer evening classes, and I think that's a great way to expand your horizon and to be ready for things that are coming down in the future.
It sounds like you were always flexible and you were willing to try new things and new approaches and new training, and that you sought challenges and risks. Me too. And it makes life more exciting, more interesting. It's a little scary sometimes, but the benefits are huge. Do you have any advice in terms of your character or qualities of working in a corporate environment that will help you be successful? For example, my father always said, you should be the hardest worker. You should be the first one in, the last one out, and that you should always volunteer for every challenge that comes up.
I think some of that is good advice, but I think, there should be some caveats as well. One thing, I think one really good piece of advice is to be good at what you do. And maybe you're in a job and you're in a group and you're all doing a similar job, but you want to become excellent at what you do. You want to stick out as being the person that does an excellent job. And I think you'll be recognized for your good work, and you'll be also recognized for your diligence. And I think that's extremely important. But having balance in your life is also, very important too. Not everything should be about your career.
So, yes, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because the career is supposed to support your lifestyle, not the other way around. But that can change real quickly depending on the kind of career and kind of thinking that you have. So what are the ways that you can take good care of yourself in a corporate environment and be the most successful?
Well, of course, you need to take care of your health. So, having a healthy body is always a big priority, and then taking care of your principles, making sure that what you're doing is something that you feel is important, and the way it's being done is in a principled manner. If you're going to give up on your principles in pursuit of some bottom line for some manager that you're working for, then that's not taking care of yourself.
Thanks so much, Professor Jim. I've learned a lot from you today. I hope our audience has too. Just in conclusion, I'd like to summarize some of the points that you've made, that it's important to know yourself. Self-knowledge comes from testing your limits and giving yourself permission to fail, but requirement to keep going even when you do. The next thing is to be adaptable so you can adjust and excel with anything that you do. The third thing would be futurespection, as I call it. Live for today, but plan for tomorrow. So the decisions that you make today, if they're long-term decisions, try to figure out if it's still going to be relevant in 5 years or 10 years. Never stop learning. Lifelong learning is an important quality in every successful person that I know. And the last thing is to focus on quality, to do your best, to do the best you can every time and follow your passion, be disciplined, and reap the deepest benefits possible. And that's our show today. I hope that you have enjoyed and learned something from this, and that you will provide us any feedback or suggestions that you have for future shows. Thanks so much for taking a closer look.